Now he's running for City Hall. The key issue he's pushing to ensure the water you're drinking is safe. Will that be enough to help him stand out in a crowded field for Chicago mayor? Let's get fired up. I'm Scott Schneider, in for Mike Flannery this week, and joining me, Jamal Green, one-time activist, now candidate for Chicago mayor. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yours is the very definition of a grassroots campaign.
Yes.
You've said something, it's a quote, I'm going to quote you here, I love it. You say, millennials are stepping up and taking charge. We need a modern approach to politics in Chicago.
Yes.
So my question to you is, what is a modern approach?
So a modern approach is a progressive style. You know, people are, tired of the old way and the old cycle of politics and the old ways of corruption in this city. We need progressive policies. We need to think differently. We need people who actually care about everyday needs of all Chicagoans and unify the city.
All right, let's talk a little bit about you. You are a Southside native. You started your community activism at what age?
15.
15, amazing.
Yes.
And when you're not raising money to build a youth center in Auburn Gresham,
Yeah.
it just so happens you're running for mayor. Let's talk about a little bit about your platform. You want to change the way CPS is run. How so?
So, first of all, I want to make sure that schools in Inglewood are just as good as schools in Ravenswood. We need the proper leadership and investment, but we also need an elected school board. Let me put that on the record. But we need to make sure that we reduce classroom sizes. We got kids, and 40 kids a classroom who don't learn the same. The lack of clinical staff members, so we're failing those kids who actually come into the school. So schools, you shouldn't have to ship your kid to a different neighborhood. You should be able to send your kid to the school in your neighborhood, and we're going to make sure that happens.
All right, let's talk a little more about your platform overall. You want to spend more on mental health. You want to decriminalize marijuana. You also want greater oversight of police. And let's be honest, you are no stranger when it comes to civil disobedience, when it comes to Chicago police. Where do you start?
So where do we start is, first, if I'm getting in office, the first thing we start is we have an independent audit on city's books. That's number one, because we need to make sure that we are prioritizing correctly and we're getting our fiscal house in order. Then after that, we have to make sure that we're prioritizing the needs, whether it's education and wellness centers. And then we got to make some necessary reforms in the police department that I don't think will be made, even though we have this new consent decree, and make sure those reforms are made in our administration.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this week's big protest on Lakeshore Drive. The demand is simple. Mayor Rahm Emanuel step down. Superintendent Eddie Johnson step down. That's not going to happen. We had Eddie Johnson on Good Day Chicago. He said he's not going anywhere. Do you agree, though, that do you agree, though, that a lot of the criticism should fall on their shoulders?
Definitely. I think that, and it's more on the mayor. I think the superintendent is in a tough position being under this administration. But the mayor has made questionable decisions. You know, when you look at this election, it's going to be up to the voters to look at someone who's going to have good character and judgment. This mayor does not have good character or good judgment on a lot of the policies, especially in regards to police reform. He covered up the tape of Laquan McDonald, a kid that was 17 years old, shot him 16 times, and he covered it up for a year. That does not say that you have good character and good judgment, all because you wanted to be mayor again. And that's what this election is going to be based on.
You know, we live in a 24-hour news cycle world, and I have been really amazed that the story about Chicago's water hasn't been at the forefront of more conversations. This is something that is near and dear to your heart. The Chicago Tribune came out with really a jarring report. They took a look at nearly 3,000 homes. 70% of those homes had lead in the water. 30% had parts per billion at levels higher than the government allows for bottled water. How did you react to this?
So I'm devastated, because I was in Flint when it happened.
Yeah, talk to us about that. What happened with you in Flint?
So when that situation happened, I said, I got to do something, because I got a lot of supporters out in Flint, and they were sending me messages like, we don't even have a way to get to the fire station to get water. So I loaded up a van with cases of water, and we went down to Flint, and instead of giving it to the fire stations, we went door to door, and we went to public housing housing and knocked on doors and say, hey, we know you guys couldn't get there. Here's bottles of water. How many you need? And we gave them cases of water. People down there are, were devastated. They don't understand what the effects are going to be on their children over time. And no one would know until decades from now. We don't want to end up like Flint and Chicago. That's why we have to address this issue now.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, because Flint, Michigan is really on an island when it comes to disparity and economically, and we've watched that story unfold. This is Chicago. This is America's third largest city. And do we really know whether or not that this lead level issue is limited to that small sampling of homes? In your mind, is this a much bigger problem?
This is a bigger problem. This affects city residents all over the city of Chicago. You got 380,000 homes that have lead service lines, and Tribune said it that it's 3 out of 10 homes have more parts per billion that they should have. And no amount of lead should be consumed at all. We have to make that clear. Even small amounts can affect the kid's brain, give them heart disease down the line, kidney failure. So we have to address this problem. And Rahm there we go back to character and judgment to say, well, we meet EPA standards, even though we have a lead problem. If homeowners want to do it, change it themselves, $10,000 to $20,000 a home. What type of character and judgment does that say about our mayor?
So you become the next mayor. Realistically, how long do you think it might take to correct this?
So our plan spans over 20 years, and we're going to prohibit lead service lines. When they're changing those main lines, they're going to change those service lines and give an automatic grace period to the owner. Then we're going to have a cost-sharing option in which we have shared responsibility, because we should have been addressed this issue, and there's going to be a fund where we take from ticket revenue as well as the TIF funds, and we're going to help out homeowners with this expense. But they'll be able to assess their portion over a period of time, over about 5 to 10 years. And then we're going to have a lead be gone assistance fund that actually is for those who are low income in these communities and don't have the money to do it. And we're going to cover up to 65% of their costs, and their portion, like I said, can be assessed over a 10-year period. But we're going to change those service lines. We're not going to keep changing the main lines, which is disturbing the service lines and increasing lead levels in the home.
All right, so the truth is, the hard, cold truth is, you're a long way from City Hall. You're a young man. You don't have the war chest of a Rahm Emanuel. If I were to look at the resume of a Paul Vallis or a Lori Lightfoot, it's probably going to be a little heftier than yours. How in the world do you separate yourself from this dense field of candidates running for mayor?
So I think the first thing you said was it's a great thing that I'm not tainted like these people that are running for office. I'm someone who is have never been a part of the establishment. I'm young, yes, I think differently, but I have a relationship with communities all over the city of Chicago. And so we're going to stand out with our platform, with our policies. We're the only campaign that has presented different solutions to all of the different problems that's going on in the city. And people see that. And then I'm going to surround myself with a lot of experienced surrogates who are going to help move forward this campaign and move forward in our administration. And it's not about the war chest. We're tired of the media keep allowing Rahm to use this fact that he's going to raise big money and that's going to make him mayor. That's not true. People are paying attention. The news all over the country are going to be paying attention to this race. We're going to get a maximum amount of exposure to get our message out, and people are going to come together to unseat Rahm Emanuel, and he better be ready for that runoff.
He's Jamal Green. He's running for mayor. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.